Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to the first ever installment of the Pathfinder Spellbook. This is a sort of new series I'm going to be dubbing the Pathfinder Spellbook. What I'm going to be doing is, each time I do one of these won't really be on a schedule like the guides, but whenever I do one of these, I'm going to be looking at one level of one tradition of magic, whether that be arcane, occult, divine, or primal. That's the one I was missing. And I know there might be new spells that come out when the APG comes out, but I'm going to be sticking to the core rulebook because there is a ton of spells in there, and maybe I'll do episodes on the APG at some point. Who knows? But basically, I'm going to go through one level of one tradition, explain what it does, give my opinions on it, and give it a ranking. These are completely subjective, and maybe your favorite spell in the spellbook will get a 1-star from me. But, everyone has their opinions, and you're entitled to yours, even if it's wrong. Alright, let's get started. We're going to start off with the Arcane Cantrips today. Just seems like a good place to start, So going in alphabetical order, we're going to start with Acid Splash, the classic spell. Acid Splash deals 1d6 acid damage, plus 1 splash damage to everything around your target, plus another 1 persistent acid damage. So for a cantrip, that's not bad. Though the persistent damage is only on a critical success, so definitely gets docked some points there. I'm definitely a fan of this spell. 1d6, plus 1, only 2 actions, plus a potential persistent acid damage. Not bad for a cantrip, a very decent last resort attack when you're out of other spells. Along with just a solid baseline, Acid Splash becomes a very solid spell once you reach about 5th level. I mean, I guess solid is but it gains your spellcasting modifier and increased persistent damage. So again, on a cantrip to deal 1d6 plus spell mod, which at that point will probably be a +3, +4, that's not bad for an infinite use ability. And then, of course, all the damage goes up little by little every time it gets heightened up to there, because cantrips are heightened to half your level. Round it up, so it'll be useful all the way through. Never your big damage dealer, but, as a cantrip that can deal 4d6 plus spellcasting modifier, not bad. Not bad. Acid Splash gets that solid 3 out of 5. I feel like I'm going to give 3 out of 5 a lot, and I don't care, because I'm bad at making heavy decisions one way or the other. Average spell, covers a lot of bases, always reliable. Chill Touch. Cool idea. Usually not as good as Acid Splash. It deals 1d4 negative damage, plus spellcasting mod, so it does have that over Acid Splash at the early levels, since Acid Splash at first level doesn't get your spellcasting mod added to the damage. So even though this is only a d4 and Acid Splash is a d6, on average this one will actually be dealing more damage. Especially because it gets to be a saving throw. Did Acid Splash get to be a saving throw? No. So because Chill Touch is a basic saving throw, if they crit fail, they're taking double damage. The downside is that they can also resist the damage for half damage or no damage on a crit success. So it's a little more variable in its damage. I just punched you. So I guess Acid Splash, if you like constant damage that's always sort of gonna deal decent without fail, versus Chill Touch, which is could be no damage, could be at level 1 if you roll a 4 plus 4, if you roll a 4 plus 3 from intellect, let's say, that's 7 damage. And if they crit fail their fortitude save, that's 14 damage from a cantrip. That's not bad. But it's also a touch spell. Very situational. If your wizard or sorcerer is on the front lines and you're not spec'd for that, careful, buddy. I'm going to give Chill Touch a 2-star. Melee magic users aren't my style. There's definitely a way to play them right, but it's definitely dangerous, and the rewards are not quite worth the risk. Dancing Lights. Not a bad spell. If you like the light spell, but when you wish you would cast it and it would make 4 lights, then Dancing Lights. Not bad. It's definitely a light spell. It's kind of weird that it is up to 4 lights, so honestly, this is just better than the light spell. Same as the Torch, which I believe is the same as the light spell. Let me check that. Torch is 20 bright, 20 dim. Light is the same as a Torch. Dancing Lights in all aspects is kind of just better than the light spell. It is the same power, but up to 4 of them, and they're not stuck to objects. So you can just be like, boom, 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 4 lights. They float. You can just cause them all to stay above one of your party members, so you all have your own personal light. That's a really solid spell. I never actually looked into that one too much. I think Dancing Lights did something different in 5th edition and 3.5. So that's a solid, very solid just utility spell. We're going into a dungeon. No need for everyone to carry a torch. Just boom, Dancing Lights. Sustain it for free. Not too bad. Not super helpful once you're in combat, because you can't really keep sustaining it. Still not bad. Oh, right, a ranking. Sorry, I'm new at this. I'll give Dancing Lights a solid 3.5 stars. I'm going to make this so difficult editing myself. Do you know how hard it is to crop out half of a star? 3.5 stars. Great utility. Nothing mind-blowing, but just better than light. Daze. Almost like Acid Splash and Chill Touch had a baby. You point at someone, they make a will save. If they fail, they take damage. If they succeed, they take half or no damage. And if they crit fail, they also become stunned, which is really cool. Daze is the spell for if you don't want a lot of variance. Daze will always deal your spellcasting modifier damage. So if you have a +4, you're dealing 4 damage. Or they'll succeed and take 2. Or they'll crit fail and take 8. It's not bad. That's pretty cool. And then once it gets heightened, it starts rolling a d6, which is awesome. So it just gets better and better. Stunned is a great status effect, since it makes them get 1 less action that round. So if they crit fail their will save against Daze, you basically just cost them a full action and dealt some damage. So, it's a pretty good spell. Solid 3 out of 5 stars for Daze. Detect Magic. Okay, so Detect Magic. I'm going to point at the video title. It's going to be up there. Basics for Gamers. It was him, right? I want to make sure I call out the right person. Yes. Okay. Link to this video right there. Basics for Gamers explained this so much better than I can. Because it's a really complicated spell with a lot of people making assumptions on it. People think Detect Magic. Is it magic? But that's not what it does. You can't be like, I cast Detect Magic on these keys. That's not how it works. What you have to do is you cast Detect Magic, and you detect 1 source of magic. The strongest source of magic, I believe. No. I'm wrong. Go watch his video. He explains it better. You only learn where 1 source of magic is, and I think that's only at a higher level. Otherwise, I think you just learn there is magic. It'll just tell you there is magic. You don't get to know where it is, what type of magic it is. You just learn there is magic. Moving on. 2 out of 5 stars, because it's complicated and I hate this spell. Electric Arc. Cool freaking spell. Basic reflex save to deal 1d4 damage. So a little bit of variance, because they might succeed or fail their save, and you have to roll damage die. But you can target 2 creatures. It's a freaking multi-target cantrip. This is a cantrip that if you roll 1d4, let's say you get a 4, add your +3 spellcasting modifier, that's 7 damage. Let's say both targets crit fail their reflex save, you just dealt 28 damage with a cantrip. Electric Arc is so good, so simple. You just shoot 2 creatures, up to 2 creatures. It can still be a single target, and it's still good. 5 out of 5 stars. If you're looking for an offensive cantrip as an arcane spellcaster, you can't go wrong with Electric Arc. Ghost Sound. Phenomenal utility spell. Great for those out-of-combat roleplay sessions. You need to distract someone. You need to send them in the wrong direction, or you need to just make an excuse to get out of there. Ghost Sound. Your bard is sitting there, can't talk his way out of this one, and the guard's staring him down, so you cause a ghost sound of anything equal to or quieter than a human voice. And a human voice shouting, specifically in the text. You guys know human voices can get really loud, so you can have the sound of a shattering pot, a man yelling for dear life, anything like that from down an alleyway. The guard goes and checks it out. Your bard sneaks away to play his lute another day. Fantastic. Only 30-foot range, but as you heighten at levels 5 and 9, that range does double each time. So 30 to 60, and then 60 to 120. Once you're a high enough level, once you're level 9, this thing is huge. Like, yeah, once everyone's high level, their big hit points can take a lot of hits, but a lot of their roleplay and utility doesn't necessarily increase with class level. So that's fantastic as a cantrip to 120 feet away. That's like That's like 20 of me. And you can just be like, boom, explosions. It's a great spell. 4 out of 5 stars just for the roleplay utility. So good. Ghost sound. Light. We talked about this. I guess I was younger back then when we talked about dancing lights. Oh, so long ago. It's not, dancing lights isn't necessarily inherently better than light, because light does not need to be sustained. That's the big difference. Dancing light is 4 lights, but if you don't sustain them each round, they do wear off. So while dancing lights is much better for exploration, light, you can just be like, these keys are light and they glow and shine, and you don't have to sustain them. They can't be, well, they can be disabled with some spells, but they can't turn off. It doesn't run out until the next day, or you dismiss it. So, not bad. And once you reach 7th level, the radius greatly extends. Goes from 40 feet to 120 feet. So, yeah, I judged light too harshly. I'll also give it a 3.5, so it's fair. It's good. It's basically a torch, but it's good. It's good. Moving on. Mage Hand. Mage Hand is divisive. It is either your favorite spell in the game, or you will never use it. From my experience, everybody loves Mage Hand, and everyone will try to get away with Mage Hand. It's pretty simple. As long as an object is not being attended, which means, it's not on someone's person, they're not holding it, it's not being used by something, you can move it. I believe you can move it up to 20 feet. It can be 30 feet away, and you can move it 20 feet. So just, give me that candy bar, thank you, boop. And then as it gets heightened at 5th, 7th, and 9th level, you can move farther and heavier things. Never more than 2 bulk. Good lord, what items have, that's like studded leather armor, I think. Damn. Wait, did I say 9th level? I meant 5th, 9th, and 13th level. Sorry, 13th level. Okay, that makes more sense. That makes more sense to move something that heavy. But that's pretty good. Yeah. Even when it's light stuff, gold doesn't weigh that much. If there's a pouch of gold and you're a little chaotic good, neutral mage, sorcerer, multi-class rogue, it's very helpful to just be like, boop. Worth noting, don't forget this, GMs. Mage Hand is verbal. So they can't just be like, it's more like, as they're, chanting and making weird noises with their mouth holes to take them. So you can't stealth cast Mage Hand. It's a verbal spell, unless you have a feat that lets you do that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's one. Moving on. Mage Hand's 3 out of 5. It's good. It's fine. It does what it needs to do. Message. Message is one of my single favorite spells in role-playing. It's in almost every system, at least as far as fantasy magic systems are concerned. And by that I mean 3.5, 5e, Pathfinder, and 2e. It's a great utility spell, Up to 120 feet away, you can mouth words as if they're standing right next to you. It's great. I don't know why I did that gag. It doesn't make any sense, because this is a video anyway. Even if I dub the audio over, it's not gonna sound like it's coming from anywhere else. You can mouth a sentence, and one target 120 feet away can hear it clear as day, as if you're standing right next to them, and they can also, as a reaction or a free action, respond to you. It's great. It's helpful. Not super useful in combat, but it can be, If you're sort of being assaulted on both sides and you learn something about the things over there, you can be like, message, hey, don't forget that the kobolds, they're weak to bullets. It's just helpful, And then in roleplay, it's constantly useful. You guys are being surrounded by bandits and you have to make a plan, so you just casually message it to people. It says it's a verbal casting, so maybe you have to chant something before you cast it, which would look a little suspicious. But I don't know, to me it's always just been a silent spell. I guess it's not silent, but still useful. In the heat of combat, in a heated moment, it's very, very helpful. 4 out of 5 stars, simply for the utility. I love message. Prestidigitation. What can I say that hasn't been said about this in 5,000 other YouTube videos on the planet, in 5 million tables the world over? Similar to Mage Hand, you either hate Prestidigitation and forget it exists, or it is your single favorite spell in Dungeons and Dragons / Pathfinder / whatever system you're rolling. It can do so much. And as long as you're creative with it and your GM isn't a jerk, it's great. You can cool, warm, or flavor a pound of non-living material. A pound! You know what this means? You get creative with it. You're stranded in the middle of nowhere. You need water, but you have an ocean. So you take the salt water and you have a fire. You have a bowl and you have fire. So you're going to boil it. Boil it so that's safe to drink. But that's going to take hours and you're almost dying of thirst. And what do? You cast Prestidigitation and you warm it. Which obviously, I don't think you can warm... No, blurry. Where was I? You cast Prestidigitation to warm the water. I don't think you can bring it to boiling point. There's actually not information on how hot it gets. But if you warm it enough, the fire will do the rest of the work. Bring it to a boil. Let it boil. And now you want to drink it, but you can't drink it. It's boiling hot. We got you. Prestidigitation. Sustain the spell for the next effect. And it cools back down. And then it cools down to drinking temperature and you chug it. You know? And let's say you're dying of thirst, but you really just want to taste that delicious Diet Coke taste. Well, Prestidigitation, sustain again, flavor a pound of that water. Boom, you have Diet Coke tasting water. Delicious. You can also almost cast Mage Hand with Prestidigitation. You can't move it, but you can lift it. So, this one's a little less useful. But let's say something just happens to be, just out of reach. Prestidigitation floats up into your hand. You know, not bad. You can make things, which I think is new to Pathfinder 2e. I don't think you can usually make things with Prestidigitation in other systems. And it's got a lot of restrictions, so this one I'm not quite as huge on. Verbatim, create a temporary object of negligible bulk, so it has to be like tiny, like keys. Thanks for being the best prop. Made of congealed magical substance. It looks crude, artificial, and is extremely fragile, and it can't be used as a tool, weapon, or spell component. I don't know what that leaves as far as, like, what you can make. If I had to get creative, I guess you could, like, make a fake rock and throw it down a hallway. But then you could just cast ghosts out. I don't know. It's a bit vague. I think that's one you have to get really, really creative on. If you can use it, leave in the comments. I'm curious how you're using that. Let me know. And finally, Tidy. This actually seems to be the one that gets used the most. Color clean or soil an object of light bulk or less. So, you know, your robes got all muddy. Actually, in a recent campaign we played, everybody got covered in sewer ooze muck because it has a tidal wave ability that covers them all in poo-poo water. And after the fight was over, the cleric's just like, Prestidigitation. Just slowly cleans it. Takes 60 seconds because it's 10 rounds, but it's still pretty good. 1 minute to get that all off. I just also love the fact that you can soil an object. So if you just want to be a jerk, you can just be like, boop, 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 you got poop stains. You know, like you do. It's only 10 feet away, though, so you can't be like across a field and just be like, his shoes are dirty now. And then you can color things, which can be really, really fun. You can color fire, you could color water, you can color anything. And even if, as long as it's less than one bulk, you can do it instantly. And even if it is one bulk, it only takes a minute, you know? If your fighter wants their armor to be bright red, it'll take like 15 minutes, but you can do it, and then as long as you sustain the spell, it's bright red. Just some interesting ways to make things seem valuable. You know, Occult has it. If you're a bard and you're trying to really upsell, maybe you scam people with your magic and you're selling rare species of animals. Maybe you have a rat and you cast Prestidigitation and you turn it bright pink and you're selling this fancy pink rat. As long as every 6 seconds or so you just sustain the spell, which granted, it would be up to your GM how obvious that is. I don't know how obvious sustaining is. It does have a verbal component, so it's possible that would be like, they would see you going like, hesh, manesh, manesh. But if not, if your GM's like, yeah, you can just sustain it by sheer force of will, then that would be cool. You know, you're a bard selling these fake animals, and then the second you make a sale, you sell it, You start packing up your things while making sure to sustain the spell, because there's a lot of things with Prestidigitation that aren't quite obvious. Maybe once it's out of 10 feet of you, it stops being that way, because it does say range 10 feet, duration sustained. So it's sort of up to your DM on how much you want to stretch this spell. It can do a lot, or it can do a little. It's really up to the group and the DM and your creativity. So have fun with it. Prestidigitation, from the sheer options, 5 out of 5 stars. I don't find myself using it that often, but I always want to. But in the moment, I can never think of these creative uses. But yeah, great spell. Everybody loves it. Everybody hates it. It's great. Produce Flame is interesting. It's not quite Electric Arc. It does the same amount of damage as Electric Arc, but only to one target. If it crits, you get some persistent fire damage, which is cool. Persistent fire damage is nice. It's fun to watch your enemies burn. And Electric Arc will never get persistent damage, so that's a really cool trade-off, because persistent damage can, over time, out-damage flat damage. Then again, you could just cast Electric Arc on the next turn. The cool thing is the way you can cast it. You can cast it the same as Acid Splash or Electric Arc, where it's just a ranged attack roll. I don't think Acid Splash is an attack roll, but you can cast it as a spell attack, like you would, anything like a. I'm struggling to think of a spell because we have no magic users in my current campaign. Or this is a really cool cantrip for melee classes cross-classing into an arcane class, because you can make it either as a spell attack from a range or as a regular melee attack. So again, it will never do as much damage as like a melee strike with a normal weapon, but what that means is you can make a melee attack roll, and it does not say a melee spell attack, so I believe it would use your dex or your strength, because it's an unarmed strike, to hit them and deal the damage. So personally, I'm usually a rules as written kind of guy, but for this, since you're making a melee attack with it, I would allow it to also count as an unarmed strike, which is only a d4 plus strength. So it would be really cool to see like a monk take a point in Wizard and then use Produce Flame as an attack, and then he gets to attack and deal his monk punchy damage plus 1d4 fire damage and then if he crits the AC, then he deals double damage with his punch and freaking double damage with his fire and catches them on fire, and it's cool. And it's really cool, and I like it. I don't know if that's how it's written. I might be wrong, but I feel like a fire monk would be really cool. Moving on, Produce Flame gets a 4 out of 5, just because I like that idea. Ray of Frost, our final element. We got electric, we got fire, we got acid, we got frost. Frost, very simple. This is your long-range sniper spell. It has a range of 120 feet. And that's about all it has going for it. It only deals 1d4 plus spellcasting mod, so again, half the potential damage of Electric Arc. It doesn't get persistent damage like Produce Flame if you crit succeed your attack. Instead, you make your spell attack, and if you crit succeed, they take a minus 10 foot penalty to movement, which is pretty debilitating in 2e. Coming from systems like 5th edition where pretty much everyone moves 30 or 35 feet per round, it's pretty normal to have people down to 20 or 25 base move speed in 2e due to their heavy armor or just small legs, because half the races in 2e are tiny people. Halflings, goblins, and gnomes, and dwarves. But it's good. This might not be your bread and butter, but if you have the jump on them and you see them coming a mile away, then you can feel free to just blast off one of these, maybe even 2 of these in the first 2 rounds while they're closing in on you, getting you some pot shots, some free damage. It's not bad. It's not great. Typically the others will perform better, except in that specific circumstance. But, 3 out of 5 stars. It's an effective cantrip. Goes up by 1d4 damage every level. Every 2 levels when it gets heightened, but no other additional effects. So it kind of falls off. Read Aura. This is the spell people think Detect Magic is. When people try to cast Detect Magic on these keys to learn if they're magical, they really mean Read Aura, which is a separate spell which targets a specific object, and you determine if that object is magical and what kind of magic it is. And as you get heightened at 5th and... Sorry, I have to do this math in my head every time, because it'll always say, heightened, 3rd. And I'm like, that's not 3rd level, that's half your level, rounded up, so 3rd would be 5th level, and 6th would be 11th level. God, that's confusing. At 11th level, Read Aura becomes what people think Detect Magic is, because you can target... Oh, I keep punching you, I'm sorry. You can target any number of objects with Read Aura once you're 11th level, so you can just scan an entire room in 1 minute. Ooh, that's why it's not that great. It's not great, it's a great spell, but it does take 1 minute. So even on that first object, these keys, to find out if they're magical, you kind of gotta focus for a full minute. Whenever you get a new item, an unidentified item, you won't discover exactly what it is. It's not identify, but, you get that new sword, and you can just be like, let me look at that. It is indeed magical, and it's evocation, so you probably know it's gonna blow stuff up. Have fun. It's useful, Scanning if a trap is magical, items are magical, learning schools of magic, very useful. Nobody uses it, because they all think Detect Magic is that spell, so 3 out of 5 for unnecessarily making them separate spells. I would have given Detect Magic both uses in the same spell, sort of like Prestidigitation, with multiple uses, but that's just me. Moving on. I love what they did with the shield spell in 2nd edition. Oh my word. So in every other D&D, and I think even in the first Pathfinder, shield was just, now my armor class is higher. But in this one, they actually gave it a shield. It's an actual shield now. So when you cast shield, you actually summon a freaking magical shield in front of you. You only get a +1 to AC, and it only lasts 1 turn. So it sounds like it sucks. However, when you use shield, you act as if you have an actual shield in front of you. So you can use the shield block reaction, which, is that the one that everybody has? I believe it is. It is a general feat, so you would have to take the shield block feat, but it's so worth it. Actually, strike that. You don't even need the feat. Verbatim, while the spell is in effect, you can use the shield block reaction with your magic shield. It doesn't say, if you have the shield block feat. So no, you can just straight up use this as your reaction to reduce the damage you take by 5. That's insane. And you can use it against Magic Missile, which normally can't be stopped. But Magical Shield can stop Magic Missile, 5 damage of it. That's absolutely insane. And every time you get up, that's insane. Every 4 levels, effectively. So, starting at 5th level, and then every 4 levels after that. So yeah, 5th, 9th, 13th. The hardness goes up by 5. So at 5th level, as long as you cast shield, you get a +1 to AC, and you reduce the damage you take by 10. Obviously, it's only once per round as a reaction, but that's absolutely massive. That's a really good cantrip. That's a 5-star cantrip, in my opinion. It only costs 1 action, so you can easily, every round, Electric Arc, shield. Electric Arc, shield. That's super good. That's so good. We got 3 left, and we're looking at Sigil. Sigil is sort of for trolls. It's not usually effective in any way. It can sometimes be used to make something seem more valuable, even if it's not. Basically, when you create your character, you determine your own unique sigil, and it's whatever you want it to. It can be a cross on fire, or a meteor with a purple trail, or a butt. It's whatever you want it to be. You're the spellcaster, and you can inscribe it by touching things, and the higher your level, the longer it lasts, and once you hit 13th level, you can make it last forever. It's fine. It can't be scrubbed off. It cannot be removed, which is kind of funny. So if you wanted to, you could just go up to a wall and just be like, sigil, 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 and it would just appear there. And even at first level, it can be scrubbed off. Sorry, I misread it. But it still says it takes 5 minutes of work. Or it'll go away naturally over a week. So it's fun. It's a silly spell. It's not that useful. It's not going to be helpful in any way in combat. I punched you again. I'm sorry. But it's fun. You can do some silly stuff with it. You can put sigils. You're not supposed to put a sigil there. Boop, I did. It's fine. I'll give it a 2 out of 5 stars. It's not great. It should be lucky to be getting a 2. I thought about giving it a 1. I really did. Moving on. Tanglefoot is interesting. It's very similar to, I believe it's just called the Tanglefoot Bomb? I'll put it right here. Alchemists get it. It's just a goo. It's a vine covered in goo, and it attacks the target, but it doesn't do damage. it says it attacks the target, and you make a spell attack on the target, and it either takes a -10 to its speed for 1 round, or if you critical succeed, so if you get a critical and you beat their armor class by 10, they become immobilized, which is kind of nice, but immobilized, I believe, is even just, yeah, you can't move. It's fine, but like Ray of Frost already gets a -10 on a crit, and that's quadruple the range of Tanglefoot. Tanglefoot's only a 30-foot range. Again, in roleplay, or maybe if you're trying to really escape, it's good, but again, you could just take 2 more move actions with the 2 actions it takes to cast. It's really situational. It's great for druids. It's a primal spell as well, but it's also arcane, and it's also just so out of place. You know, this wizard who's conjuring and controlling the elements in your mind is just like, a vine has some goo on it. Now you're slow. It's a little, you know, it's not super flavorful for me. I personally wouldn't see myself taking it, maybe as a druid, just for flavor. And as it does get heightened, it does get better. At 3rd level, it lasts for 2 rounds, so you could immobilize them for 2 rounds. But they can still escape. Like, I didn't mention that, but even if you critical succeed, they can make an escape check on their turn for 1 action, and if they beat your spell DC, it's gone. Even the immobilized from the crit is just gone. No more effect. So it's not great. It can only target 1 creature. If it could target, like, an area, like a 5-foot area, and stick everyone in there, I think it'd be pretty good. But maybe that would be overpowered as a cantrip. I don't know. Balancing this is tough. Maybe if they took, like, 1 sustained damage, like crushing damage from the vines constricting them, maybe it'd be better then. I don't know. I want to give this one a 1 star. I do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give Tanglefoot a 1 star. There's just better options. It's good utility, but it's slow, single target, only lasts 1 round, and can just be escaped, you know? It's a little too weak. I think it needs a little bit of a buff. Maybe if it was 2 rounds at 1st level, and then heightened to 3, it'd be better. But, what can you do? They can't all be winners. Final spell. This one might not be super effective, but it's really damn fun. Telekinetic Projectile. I punched you again. I promise it's the last time this video. This is one of my favorites. You hurl an object of 1 bulk or less, which is most one-handed weapons, or smaller, but it doesn't even matter how big it is. You could throw an ink pot, you could throw some keys at an enemy, and the type of damage depends on what it is. So if you throw a dagger, it'll deal piercing. If you throw a saw blade, it'll deal slashing. If you throw a club, it'll deal bludgeoning. It'll usually be a weapon, but not always. And that's where this one gets fun. It's like I said, you can take your keys and telekinetically throw them at your enemy, and it deals 1d6 plus spellcasting mod. And if you, I believe they get a reflex save. No, it's a spell attack. So if you crit their armor class by 10 or more, you're dealing 1d6 plus spell mod doubled with a +3 to your spell mod. That's almost 19 damage in 1 cantrip to 1 target. I know I was praising Electric Arc for dealing 28 damage, but that's to 2 targets. This is the single strongest single target damage cantrip. And it's super basic. You have to have something to throw, but there's always a rock. There's always a drop. Like if your fighter just killed an enemy, you can telekinetic projectile that enemy's weapon onto the other enemy and attack that way. It's so creative. It's not necessarily the most effective. It provides no utility. It's just for damage, but it's so cool. I definitely give Telekinetic Projectile a 4 out of 5 stars just because the image on the battlefield as 2 wizards are just throwing things at each other like a game of dodgeball. It's so cool. I love it. I kind of wish the damage was based on the size of the item you threw, and as it heightened, you could throw bigger things instead of just always being a flat d6. But I guess you can understand, like, think of it as smaller items can be thrown faster and bigger items move a bit slower. So that's why the damage is always the same. And that's all the Arcane Cantrips in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. That's it for this episode of the Pathfinder Spellbook. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that title. I like it. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was pretty easy to make. I mostly just sat in front of the camera and talked and threw some lazy overlays of whatever spell I was talking about. And it was a lot of fun, so maybe I'll do it again. We'll see. This is just an experimental video. I want to do more with the NoNat channel besides just guides going forward, and maybe this is a good start. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I really appreciate you guys watching. And, you know, if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing if you're not already. Hey, to the 252 of you who were here first when this video was recorded, you the best. And to the rest of you still to subscribe, don't worry. You can be the best too. You know what you have to do. That was weird. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, no nat ones.